brought to you by Newsworks in cooperation with the City of Eau Claire. This program is simulcast on WRFP-LP 101.9 FM.
All right, we'll call the work session to order. And just to make sure we have everyone and we're connected and everything, let's call a roll call, starting with Mr. Seymour. Here. Brenholz?
Here.
Granlund?
Here.
Gregor?
Here.
Christopherson?
Here.
Wolfram?
Here.
Obeid?
Here.
And looks like we don't have Mr. Krosnick yet. We'll see if she shows up. Mr. Allen, you can hear us okay?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes. And there is Commissioner Krosnick, who we will make a panelist. Mr. Krosnick, you can hear us okay?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Agenda item number 1 is follow-up on questions and comments from the November 16th work session. Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to see if there are any additional comments, questions, concerns from the meeting last month. To kind of recap that meeting real briefly, again, there's some information you're able to read through, kind of the meeting notes, not really technically minutes from the last meeting, last work session, I should say, but walk through kind of, follow-ups from the previous work session, looked at the council strategic work plan and the plan commission work plan, and then reviewed the plan implementation program. Again, chapter 15 is really your focal point for the 5-year plan review. And then talked about that assessment as well, and kind of staff's assessment, got some feedback on that as well. So thank you for that information, and just wasn't sure if there's anything perhaps missing from those notes, or if there are other comments and questions that were left unresolved from those agenda items. But again, there were a number of kind of follow-up items that staff has undertaken since then, which is what the bulk of the work session will be focused around here moving forward.
Good. Any comments, questions, or discussion from the commission as follow-up from last week? Okay, I see none, so go ahead to an overview of input from boards, commissions, and committees, Mr. Allen.
Yes, thank you again, Mr. Chair. And I see, well, I don't see Mr. Petrie, but I'm assuming he is. Oh, wait, I do see Mr. Petrie. He is way in the distance, up by you. Is that right?
Looks like he's coming up to the podium.
Oh, there. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, and as we get started here, I just I think Ryan, I don't know if you wanted to pull, as I make you run around the meeting room, if you're able to pull up the kind of Gantt chart to help us get kind of focused on this agenda item as well. Sorry, I can do some of that as well, Mr. Chair, if we need to keep Mr. Petrie focused on kind of tech issues in-house. I can certainly do some of the document driving here.
Yeah,
but
makes sense.
But again, included in your packet, and again, it will most likely strain the eyes to read through it, but it is again something we highlighted last meeting, which kind of gave us some orders to kind of move forward with bringing each of these different chapters to various groups throughout the city for some initial input and review moving forward. And again, so that's why it is quite small. Try to fit this all into one page, all of chapters 2 through 14. Again, 15 is that plan implementation program, which is kind of the action steps. Chapter 1 is just the introduction, so it's really 2 through 14, plus the sustainability chapter, as well as the health chapter, I should note as well. That will be referenced here. So if Ryan, if I should be pulling that item up, I cannot share from here, but.
Yeah, he's got it. He's got it up.
Okay, is there any, we cannot see that on the WebEx at all?
What?
Hmm?
Oh, they can't see that? Oh, no.
No, that's, so I think our,
He's going back to work on it now.
yeah, sorry about that. And again, unless somebody could turn over sharing options to me and.
They can't see it.
Can you see it now?
Nope. I think, Ryan, are you logged in as yourself? There we go. Yep. That's a little, okay. Yeah, that'll get us started. Okay, thank you. So I don't know, Ryan, if you can scroll where you're at.
Sure, why not?
All right, look at that. Excellent.
Oh, there we go.
Starting at the top there. Really, just to give a little bit of context here. Again, appreciate the thoughts and ideas and guidance to move forward with bringing each of the pieces back to the different boards, commissions, and committees throughout the city for their input and review as well. And so that's what staff have been trying to do over the last several weeks to make that happen. The Gantt chart here and what was in your packet kind of shows a bit of a timeline just to show kind of where we've been and a lot of the overlap in different meetings and review periods. So, for example, tonight, Chapter 2, we'd like to walk through that as the next agenda item, along with Chapters 8 and 9. I should note as well, as we see here, we have different staff assignments. Again, we just have our 3 staff planners for the moment, so still recruiting for the new Ned, as we say, our replacement associate planner to take over Mr. Noel, who moved into Pat Ivory's position last month. So it's just the 3 of us for the moment moving forward, again, with assistance of other staff in various divisions as well. I know Mr. Whitwer is in the audience there, and Mr. Plaza is online as well, both from engineering and then also community services. Appreciate their input and assistance as well. So with that, for example, Chapter 3, scrolling back up, going in numerical order here, Transit Division and Bpac were to be the ones to review that. Bpac is meeting tomorrow, so they have not yet reviewed this in any kind of public setting to have any kind of conversation at this point. I should note too that Ned is unable to join us here tonight. He had attended some family matters and unable to be here to help kind of share some of the input he's had so far, but we'll try our best. Moving on to, yes, Chapter 4, Public Utilities Plan is one that kind of seated pretty squarely with Community Services Department. Ryan, if you wanted to provide any updates on that.
Not at this time. I do not have any updates.
Okay. And again, we're trying to show here too the kind of where a lot of these purple bars end. Yeah, scrolling to the right a little bit, is tonight, is with your work session here tonight. So that doesn't mean these can't be extended, but we wanted to give you at least an update of where we are in each of these different chapters here tonight. So that's why you see a lot of these ending there. You do see some others kind of extending beyond that, simply because there's some additional groups that are still either reviewing or have not yet met. So we want to give you an update on each of those. Chapter 5 is Parks, Greenways, Trails Plan. That, I believe, went to the Waterways and Parks Commission earlier this month. Ryan, if you have an update on that.
It did, December 2nd, it went to Waterways and Parks Commission. They had a discussion and update. Some of the members emailed staff prior to the meeting. The discussion at the meeting, during the meeting, was short and brief, but the question was asked from Council Member Greger and Plan Commission Member Greger about looking for land and or open space that is currently outside of the community, in the townships of either Chippewa County or Eau Claire County. The Parks and Waterways Commission discussed that, and they noted one of the existing parks that's outside of the community currently in the town of Washington along Lois Creek Road. They would like to see that potentially developed in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So that was one of the examples that the commission did use for land that's currently outside the city that would be open space and or suited for a park. Now, one of the members did email staff prior to the meeting talking about that, and he noted that the park would be utilized and used by the users outside the city limits, which is interesting to note because that is surrounded by the town of Washington. It is plus or minus two miles out from south of Gulf Road, if this commission's familiar with that. They were concerned that the city would invest X amount of dollars and improve that open space parkland for residents that do not live inside the city. So that was one of the concerns that one of the members had. From the staff side of it, that would remain open space, and it is not in the comprehensive plan at this moment. But then we got talking about other parks that are currently inside the community. Some of them may or may not be underutilized. There was mentioned as well. During the discussion, Parkland Dedication was brought up, and it was noted in the work plan. I think this might be the opportunity to throw that off on Pat Ivory, but he was working on that as the staff lead. The City Council work plan did note that as well, and that may be something we look at again in 2021 as staff and as a Waterways and Parks Commission. I would also note we went through the chapter. There was very brief comments. One of the members did ask the question about the skate park that was proposed at Boyd Park, and we are researching that information at this time. I'm not 100% sure where that is in the plan. The Parks Commission and staff did note that with the staff turnover in the Parks Department, with the new Steve Plaza and Renee Tyler, there is some learning curve for staff with the Parks Commission, but we did discuss and review the chapter for the Waterways and Parks Commission, and that was the brief comment that staff received. Now, I did let them know that this discussion was occurring this evening, and I haven't heard back from any of the members at this time, but I did give them until the end of this month to provide any more comments in the future. So that would be the update for the Waterways and Parks Commission, which was discussed within two Wednesdays ago.
So as of right now, there's no proposals from them.
Not any significant changes at this time. That is correct, Mr. Chair.
And thank you, if I may. Ryan, I think, so they were looking at both Chapter 5 and Chapter 6, correct?
That is correct. They didn't have any comments on Chapter 6.
Okay, and again, yeah, really appreciate the effort to bring that to them, and then also getting their feedback as well. Again, the focus really being on the action plan piece of it and making sure that, you know, as like Ryan mentioned, just even like Parkland Dedication, if that's a real priority moving forward, that just making sure that's landing timeline-wise where it needs to land, and getting the correct input and process in place for that. So yeah. Chapters.
All
right.
I was going to say real quick.
Go ahead.
I did mention that the neighboring city of Altoona did pass a Parks Dedication fee and they would prefer the city looked at that, but not necessarily follow the city Altoona. So just keep that in mind.
Great, thank you. So if I may, Mr. Chair, yeah, moving on to Chapter 7. And again, just thank you for bearing with us as we kind of go through each of these different chapters, and happy to pause at the end here and see if any questions or feedback on that process. Certainly, moving forward in our next agenda item, we'll go through more specifically, have those chapters more expectant of Planning Commission input, chapters 2, 8, and 9. So, Chapter 7, Economic Development Plan. This is being reviewed still, kind of ongoing with the Economic Development Division. And let's see here, RDA as well. And I know with feedback from the Planning Commission at your last work session, asked if the RDA could take a look at Chapters 7, 8, and 12. So as we were preparing for the meeting here this afternoon, I got some follow-up feedback from a few of those members on some of those chapters. I should note too that, again, we've gotten some feedback thus far. I don't have anything of great specificity to share at this point, but we are in the process of kind of distilling those and filtering those items that we got even this afternoon. So with that, again, you can see here too that the timeline does extend a little bit beyond this, because we really started with the Economic Development Plan with the RDA at their meeting last month, I should say. This month they're not having a meeting, and so it's really just kind of going through email at this point. And so I noted with some of these already, looking to get some feedback here, hopefully by today. Did mention that you're having this work session today, so got a few comments over the weekend and even this afternoon, as I noted. So, but we are giving them until kind of the end of the month as well, since they have really been asked to look at 3 different chapters. So they started with the Economic Development Plan, but after your work session last month, they've now been asked to look at chapters 8 and 12. So chapter 8, as we scroll down here, is again in process with RDA, and will be discussed a little bit more here tonight. Chapter 9, the same for the Planning Commission here tonight. Again, I apologize, Ned is unable to unexpectedly is unable to attend, and so we'll try our best to kind of share what we have with the Neighborhoods and Districts Plan. But appreciate a lot of information so far that we've been getting from individual members of the Planning Commission. So thank you to everybody who's been able to put together some information already in advance tonight, but certainly have an opportunity to further discuss that here. Chapter 10, most certainly has been a priority for the Housing Opportunities Commission. They've taken 2 meetings to look at that, and by their next meeting, which you see here, January 13th, they expect to have final comments back to you after that meeting. The Chapter 11 Landmarks Commission, I don't know, Ryan, if you have any update on this. I was actually at that meeting, at least part of it, last week, and there wasn't great fervor over the plan from the Landmarks Commission. Simply, they do use it as they put together their annual work plan. So a lot of what they've been working on is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and therefore the plus to that, there hasn't been much deviation or request or need to modify much of that.
Yeah, Scott, that is correct. I was on that call as well, and I think with their work plan, they were going to mention more in detail about the Chapter 11 and any section that needs to be put into the work plan for 2021. But we can follow up with Ned on that one. Okay.
Thank you. And moving down, Chapter 12, as mentioned, RDA is looking at that. Also presented that to the DECI board at their meeting earlier this month. They provided a few specific and it's specific, individual comments I meant from a few different members, and some of those comments were referring to making sure that certain other aspects that have kind of grown of importance throughout the city over the last 5 years are taken into account. For example, the Renewable Energy Action Plan with the sustainability, just ensuring that there's enough crossover with that plan, not only in the Chapter 12 here with downtown, but also kind of throughout. So that was a good acknowledgement of that. And again, just looking at updating kind of where we've been over the last 5 years, because there have been some significant improvements, certainly, not the least of which would be Pablo Center and Haymarket Plaza and some of those developments downtown. So I can certainly dig up notes and share some of the other items, but again, just ensuring that kind of moving forward and understanding that this is kind of that midterm review over the next 5 years, that you need to make sure that what we've done over the last 5 years in other aspects, again, sustainability being one of those, is kind of a lens that we look at with the downtown, again, in their purview, but obviously certainly other chapters as well. So again, RDA is looking at that too, because again, like the Cannery District redevelopment plan and the development going on kind of Oxford Ave area north of Madison, West Riverfront is definitely an area of great interest and change here coming forward in the next 5 years. Chapter 13, I don't know if Ned had a chance to meet with Community Services Department at this point, but we could certainly field any questions as need be. Again, that is trying to align with a lot of the plans that Community Services is putting together. For example, currently they're working on Custer Park Master Plan, and recently put together transit development plan as well. So just making sure that a lot of that is just kind of checking the boxes and aligning with those other plans. Chapter 14, Governmental Cooperation Plan. Again, I've been receiving some input and feedback from these various entities, but I need to be more specific and intentional with their feedback there. I put the 19th on there only because that might be, the week of your normal second meeting of the month, and just kind of pushing it out to that point. Should we look at another work session in January? Talking with Ryan earlier today, we may be talking about perhaps your first meeting in January for another work session. That would be the 14th. I put the 19th here only because the 18th is a holiday with Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So with that, have been talking with the county and trying to coordinate with their comprehensive plan update. They too are looking at, but they're actually looking at a full update, kind of their 10-year update to get finalized in January and into February. So I've been on their kind of a steering committee over the last 18 months, and again, just kind of coordinating those efforts together. And then finally, sustainability chapter. That is looking at having the Sustainability Advisory Committee. They're supposed to meet this week, and get their feedback here for you moving forward. So with that, I'm happy to open up to some questions, but wanted to just kind of lay all this out there to show you that we've been meeting with all these different boards and commissions, or in the process of doing that, and that excuse me, getting a lot of good feedback, a lot of good comments, but still in process. So don't have final answers from all the groups and all the members of those different groups at this point, but we hope to certainly have those wrapped up for you as we go into January. So yeah, with that, I'll see if there are any questions at this point.
Okay. What I'd like to do just briefly, it won't take me long, but I just want to review what I've gathered from what you said on each of these chapters. 2, 8, and 9, we're going to be talking about tonight in the Plan Commission. chapter 3, we need to hear back from Ned to see if Bpac had any feedback. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And we still need to see about the Community Services Department for the Public Utilities Plan, Chapter 3.
Correct, I'll follow back up with them.
Chapters 5 and 6 essentially are done. It was discussed at the Waterways and Parks, and there was no substantial changes.
Not at this time, that's correct.
Okay. The RDA needs to still weigh in on the Economic Development Plan, Chapter 7.
Correct.
And they will be weighing in on Chapter 8.
That's correct.
And Chapter 9 is ours tonight. The Housing Diversity and Design Plan will be discussed at the Housing Opportunities Commission meeting on January 13th. Is that right?
Yes. And again, they have discussed it, but that was kind of the deadline I gave them for their next meeting.
Okay, so you expect more, potentially
Correct.
more feedback on that chapter from them?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, chapter 11 is done. Landmarks looked at it, didn't have any substantial.
That's correct. We'll confirm that with Ned, but yes, I believe so.
We need to hear from RDA on the downtown plan.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And community facilities plan, we want to hear from Ned if he has any feedback from Community Services Department.
That's correct.
Government cooperation plan sounds like is done, Scott, or are we waiting on anything for that?
Yeah, I do want to circle back with our kind of my counterparts at each of those entities, Blair County, Chippewa County, and the RPC, just to affirm that they don't want to bring anything more specific forward to any of their boards and commissions. I don't anticipate that being the case, but I will just confirm that before your next meeting.
Okay. And then the Sustainability Advisory Committee, Ned will report on.
Correct.
When he has a chance.
Correct. Yeah. So Bpac and Sustainability Advisory Committee are both slated to meet this week, I believe. Is that right, Ryan? Do you know that?
Yes, I confirmed with Trevor that Bpac is tomorrow,
Okay.
and then sustainability would be also tomorrow as well.
Tomorrow or Wednesday?
One or the other.
I'm not 100%. I don't want to say either one, but yeah, it's this week.
Okay. So
Right, okay, thank you.
It sounds like we're gonna need another work session before we're completed. Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, that would be our recommendation, simply because, even though we've gotten a lot of good feedback, a lot of it has been very recent. So we haven't had an opportunity to really, put it together in a, and review it in comparison with what we're, moving forward with the different action steps. So we'd like to review all the more information. Again, we have a few outstanding items, as you noted. So that being the case, that'll, if we can have one more work session at least to put all this together and present it to you in a little bit more, formal fashion, that would be helpful. And again, that can certainly be done virtually, electronically. We can email materials out and such as well. It doesn't necessarily need a work session per se to share that with you, but we do want to go through this and present it a little bit more thoroughly and more formally, whatever that looks like.
Any discussion or questions from the commission regarding the overview of input from boards, commissions, and committees? Mr. Greger.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Thank you, Mr. Allen. I guess I serve on Transit Commission, and I don't think we have seen it. And it wasn't on our agenda in November, and I don't see it on our December agenda either, so just wanted to flag that.
He was talking, Councilmember Greger was talking about Commissioner Greger, number.
Transportation plan.
Yeah. We sent that to the transit manager and he reviewed it. And I don't think it's on the agenda for this week. I'll have to follow back up with him. Maybe we can get that on in January. We were noting that the transit plan just went through the review and council review. And the transportation plan of the comp plan notes transit briefly, but I think we can add that to, or extend that out and put that on for January. We'll confirm with the transit manager on that, who sets the agenda for transit commission. And we'll get their feedback as well.
Okay, yeah, and for the first time in my memory, the Transit Commission is doing a work plan for 2021, so
Yeah.
it may be helpful to see it, to give ideas and things, and so.
I would agree.
Thank you.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other discussion or questions from the commission about this item? Okay, I see none, so we will move on to item number 3, which is a review and discussion of chapters 2, 8, and 9. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, yeah, the bulk of our time here we want to spend with you over the next hour. Again, we do want to adjourn by 6:30 to allow time to kind of switch over to the regular meeting at 7, allow people a little bit of a break in between as well. But we do want to take the next hour to talk through the next 3 chapters. Again, appreciate everyone's comments that we've received in advance so far from several of the commission members. But with that, we're going to kind of turn it over to each of the staff that was assigned to these. We'll do our best with chapter 9. That was Ned's plan, but we really want to kind of, again, focus on that action plan section. We can kind of go through page by page if you'd like. I know chapter 2 in particular, again, that's been Ryan's item, had maybe a little bit more, I guess, substance to really look at some modifications, meaning, you know, that kind of got our guiding planned land use map that we're recommending looking at some changes as a result of this process. So the others are a little bit more focused really strictly on those action steps, but chapter 2 is maybe looking a little bit more thoroughly throughout the whole chapter. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ryan to kind of walk through chapter 2 and then get your feedback and comments on that.
Thank you for that introduction. So yeah, chapter 2 is the land use chapter, which this commission looks at land uses on a regular basis for rezoning, development plans, site plans, and plats. So I wanted to highlight a little more detail within the comprehensive plan and within the packet this evening. Obviously, as Mr. Allen mentioned, the land use map is a guide that we use and we'll continue to use, and we'll update that with this process. That's a key component of rezonings and land use for now and for the future. I did want to highlight some things that were in the plan that this commission does review on a typical basis, even recently this year. In particular, I wanted to highlight new neighborhoods and infill development. Typically, a new neighborhood, we talk about the components within the comprehensive plan, the future land use map as mentioned, the land use, and then making it a mixture of housing unit types, and then also making it pedestrian friendly and sustainable for future growth. That would be a good example of what this commission reviewed last month on the corner of Graff Road and Old Town Hall Road. That development came forward again as a revised general development plan. But then we talked about how it's going to have a park and greenway open space area. Commissioner Grigger mentioned connectivity of pedestrians and bicycles. And unfortunately, it is outside the transit area, but it does have a mixture of housing types and future housing types to the south for single family. Also wanted to highlight within the plan is this infill development, which this commission has reviewed field applications throughout the months and years, and that will continue with the Cannery District. This commission did review the current, it is called now, not Cannery Trail Apartment. That was an infill project that we allowed a little more flexibility within the land use. That would be rezoned to central business plan development to allow for a lesser of a setback, a little higher density, and that building as today, I talked to the developer last week, is about 70% full now. So the residents have moved in there. I don't know if this commission members have been by there. It's across from the brewing project. And then now the road will be done in 2021. I know Trevor's nodding his head. So that would be an infill project that this commission has reviewed. Also within the older neighborhoods, wanted to highlight, we work with them on a regular basis. Most of the redevelopment and infill development has occurred within the historic Randall Park neighborhood. As for example, the 100 block of Chippewa Street, they have removed some of the buildings on the corner of 2nd Avenue and Chippewa Street, and they are redeveloping that into a higher density, removing the older homes. The neighborhood was okay with that in the surrounding area. That's adjacent to the university parking lot, and that development is going forward. I would highlight that that is within the floodplain as well, so they had to raise that up above flood elevation. So that's just a few examples of what this commission reviews on a regular basis. Then highlighting, again, the activity centers. In particular, I would like to highlight this project that we just reviewed in front of Shopco to allow for infill development and an activity center within an older area along the Claremont Avenue Education and Medical District. Staff finds that project to be infill as well, because that is not expanding outside and it's using existing utilities within the area. So that's just a few projects that I wanted to highlight. Now this chapter has 40 pages, as some of the members may have looked through it. I did want to highlight within the assessment plan, the airport zoning. We did get an email the other day from the airport, and this commission, they would like to discuss a new zoning district potentially in the future. So that may be coming forward to this commission. Staff will work with the airport to figure out what is the best zoning for that area. Then moving down farther, I would like to highlight number 10, where this commission reviews in particular the ETJ, which is 3 miles outside the city limits. Some of the areas within the sewer service area, the SSA, as most of you may know, and that's reviewing of subdivision of land. Now, we typically don't look at the land use, we just look at the subdivision of land. This commission did deny one certified survey map in the town of Washington off of Highway 93. That was for 4-lot certified survey map that was not in compliance with those standards. And they were asking for an exception. And this commission decided that that was not appropriate subdividing of land. In the end, that applicant was denied, so they would have to revise their plan to be in compliance with that ETJ standards and within the sewer service area for the city of Eau Claire and then the surrounding townships. The only other thing I wanted to highlight this evening was the forecast land use area. This should be updated in 2020 coming forward. This is broken down to 2030 and the needs within the community. As I would like to highlight, the housing unit need is high, and that would be directly impacting the affordable housing as well. As you note here, the biggest increase would be the housing unit types. We need about 5,300 would be the change. This year, I could highlight that single family has been lagging behind twin homes, 4 units, and multifamily. Right now, I estimate, I just ran an update last month, we're at 68 single family, and last year we were at almost 100 at this time. So that is lagging behind, and that may be directly impacted by how housing costs has increased significantly, and also people are looking for more flexibility within their homes as COVID has continued. So I would like to highlight that as well. Now that's including detached and attached housing units as well. So we will get that updated numbers for 2020. Do you have a question? Oh, go ahead.
Mr. Grandma, did you have a comment?
Yes, I was thinking that with the recent request we had to use some of the retail space for other business activities, that some phrase could be added to the infill development or the activity center to reflect the fact that there would be alternative uses within them, or like I said, it seemed relevant to the infill and reinvestment that we allow certain changes of use within a zone. But those would be areas we could adapt or adopt some of that recent activity into the area that we've got here.
Yes, good question. This commission did review an ordinance amendment that went through the council and was approved by the council, and then it was reconsidered by the council after this commission did recommend denial of that, and then in the end, the council reconsidered and then recommended denial as well. Mr. Allen is the lead on that project. I don't know if he has anything to add, but I do know that we'll be coming back to this commission in the next year, 2021, to allow for more flexibility, especially within our big box stores that have been vacant, not only to mention Shopko, Mega East, and then old Sears, but there will be some other ones potentially coming vacant in the next years to come. I don't know, Mr. Allen, did you want to add any comment on that at this time?
No, other than specific to that item, we do have, and our planning intern is assisting us too with some research and review of possible options to reconsider and bring back to you early in the new year, as soon as possible. I know that was the guidance and direction from the City Council as well, when they took that up again, was to see that come back before them in the next few months. So. Yeah, so a lot of these too are going to be speaking, a lot of these items too, will speak into your 2021 work plan, as much as they are relevant to 2021, of course. So, you know, we're kind of trying to sift through a lot of these different specific items, not just, you know, modifying and updating the action steps and some of these key components of each chapter, but also then setting that up for, you know, what does that look like in your work plans for the next 5 years. So it's a little bit of prognosticating as well as, you know, what can we all undertake right out of the gate in the new year too. That's one of them.
Yes, thank you for that. The only other thing I would like to mention within the land use chapter is the parking as a land use, and we've seen an influx of requests that are significantly over parked. I would like to highlight the CBTC Center on the west side. Staff it was a difficult decision by staff. Usually when a parking lot goes in, for example, anywhere by the mall or anywhere else in this community, it is very challenging to get that redeveloped or turned into other than parking. A parking study is on the agenda for this evening at 7 o'clock to talk about commercial and downtown parking. It will be within the work plan to update our parking standards for 2021. parking as a land use, is challenging to get redeveloped, as I mentioned. Most of the time, parking lots will always be parking lots, and unfortunately, it does cost a significant amount of money and time and investment to remove that parking into something other than a parking lot. Now, the Shopko redevelopment plan did show, they're taking an acre or plus or minus an acre of overpaved and turning it into a shopping center. For example, CBTC's parking lot along Claremont Avenue is one of the pet peeves of mine and others in the organization and the community. That probably would never be touched in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And unfortunately, the CBTC parking lot probably is used one time a year at full capacity, and that's usually for the marathon. So I'd just like to highlight that parking as a land use, and that will be a significant change in our ordinance going forward in 2021. And the downtown parking study that Ms. Ness will be presenting this evening will highlight the downtown need, but staff and this commission will be reviewing parking as a land use throughout the entire community in regards to the commercial and the downtown area, and adding more flexibility within those parking requirements, because it appears that there's excessive need for parking and paving the community. With that, I'll be happy to answer any other questions or any feedback from this group.
Good, thank you. Any questions or discussion about Chapter 2? Commissioner Wolfgram.
Good evening. First, thank you, Chairperson Larson. I wanted to just extend appreciation first to Scott, Ryan, Ned, and others who really have been providing such timely feedback. As I can just speak for myself as I'm wading through all of this information. So I really appreciate that. Mary and Judy from the Housing Opportunities Commission and myself collaborated on the 3 chapters, and we have an action step recommendation for Chapter 2. Our recommendation would be, and we did submit an email to Scott, to revise and update the public participation program Appendix A, which is in the analysis of conditions in the comprehensive plan, the land use chapter, to be an ongoing program at the direction of the Housing Opportunities Commission. The objective is to use public input to guide zoning regulation changes that will encourage the revitalization of older neighborhoods and increase density and diversity of housing throughout the community. Our perspective is that current zoning discourages future housing growth and inhibits neighborhoods' ability to increase density in housing and diversity of housing types. Exploring zoning changes within neighborhoods can improve affordability and diversity of housing while encouraging the preservation of existing housing. So that would be our action step recommendation. Of course, language recommendations are always welcome, and I wanted to give Mary an opportunity to weigh in on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Krozek?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that last part? My phone broke up. Susan, what did you want me to weigh in on?
The recommendation that I just spoke about.
For the land use, right?
Yes.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. For some reason, I just keep cutting in and out, but I've had phone issues today, so I'm not too sure what's going on. As far as, the land use recommendations. Hold on, I'm back. No, I'm here. It's just like I said, it's just cutting in and out. It's nothing on your guys' end. It's purely my end today. I think there was like an AT&T tower issue or something. No, and Judy and Susan did a lot of this workup, so I got really distracted last week over something that happened at the office. But as far as like the codes and stuff are concerned, and I just, looking for more, I guess, some flexibility on that as far as for, density and all that stuff, just making more, I don't know. just, yeah, I think it's really focusing on that flexibility. We're having an issue right now in a different city and stuff like that. And it's just, I guess I'd like to see some of that rewritten or reworked or something along those lines. Susan, if you can help me out here a little bit, I just want to make sure I'm on the same page as you are.
Okay, thank you. Mary collaborated and has a copy of the email that was sent to Scott and reviewed it. And I do know that she's had a lot of unexpected stress this past week or so. So thank you.
I would just highlight that, with the plan development ordinance that this commission and the city council does review, does allow for a lot of flexibility, especially within the older neighborhoods. Now, the neighborhood plans, in particular for historic Rhino Park neighborhood, there is a little less flexibility. But throughout the whole community, for example, I would go back to the current, this commission did allow for flexibility within the setback, they did allow flexibility within the density, and then they did allow flexibility also with the parking requirements for that project. So maybe just highlighting that within our current ordinance, but I also understand what the commissioners are talking to this evening about.
A lot of my concerns and going back and forth with Judy and Susan, that email was like making sure that we're focusing on some of the areas. Like we hear a lot about downtown and stuff like that, but it's just like off of Hastings, which I know we're working on converting a hotel over there, and just we're like on Claremont we are, and then even Hastings, like some of these areas that just they are older neighborhoods, and it would be nice to see a lot more mixed use being pushed, because I think that's become really popular in a lot of other cities and suburbs. So not even, it's hard to compare large urban centers to Eau Claire, because we are, but we're not. Although for some reason, apparently the city of Altoona thinks we are a large urban center, or at least some of the residents do. But it's just, I would really love to see more of that. Like, how can we bring those areas back to life? After that 53 bypass got put in, so many of those areas, I just felt like they were forgotten. And it's like, what could we do to drive people there? Because nobody goes there anymore. There's always all these different ways around the city. And like, how can we, get developers to want to build there, but like not just to get people to live there, because they have to be able to work there too, or there has to be shops or something. And I just feel like that mixed use zoning is really so important. It's helped revitalize so many areas. And I guess I would just really love to see more of that in the areas of Eau Claire that have just kind of seemed like, yeah, they're dying off. Like you just see nothing but vacant commercial buildings. It's just kind of dead. And so I think when I talk about flexibility, I know you guys have done a lot with loosening that as far as parking and stuff's concerned, but it's just like really pushing anything we can to get something happening in these areas that just haven't seen much action for a while.
Okay, I apologize, I'm not able to find Appendix A for Chapter 2. Can somebody point me to where we're talking about?
Can I speak? Is that okay?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, please.
When you're looking at the actual comprehensive plan, there's a section called analysis of conditions. So it's a little confusing. It took me a while to find it. And then you go to the land use chapter, and then it's Appendix A.
Analysis.
If I could add to that, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Yes. So analysis of conditions and issues reports. It's really kind of the kind of like existing conditions. Exactly that analysis of conditions. Kind of the items that the data, the kind of the background information that went into each of the different chapters of the comprehensive plan that you really are familiar with looking at, which are the policy plan chapters. So, those are the chapters that are typically updated every 10 years. Certainly those are things that can be identified as perhaps, needing some more, rigorous update before the 10-year timeline comes up. But, that's something that's, can be discussed here. The Appendix A participation plan, and Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, that was really focused on how the comprehensive plan was going to be carried through kind of advisory committee process, and how input from Plan Commission and such would happen for the comprehensive plan. If there's kind of an interest from the commission in revising and updating that for a specific issue or topic or other chapter, perhaps that could certainly be something we could look at moving forward. So not perhaps, again, I don't want to speak for Commissioner Wolfgram, but yeah, is that the understanding, is that it's really kind of taking that structure and concept and applying it to, for example, housing or land use management or something like that, and I guess just to understand from staff's perspective, is that the idea? Because revising and updating it as it stands is really specific to the full revision of the comprehensive plan.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. So for the three of us specifically, a lot of us can have a lot of ideas on new zoning regulation. For instance, myself, I'm very much interested in the multifamily zoning that's been going on in Minneapolis. Mary just talked about mixed use. There's a lot of other ideas. But the purpose of revising and updating for the land use chapter is to be able to use public input to guide any zoning regulation changes. And so that would be the more specific purpose of adding that action step. Is that clear enough?
Yeah,
Yes, that helps. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I add to that real quick? That part that Susan just mentioned about that public input. I know for me personally, one of the reasons I think that is so important is we're looking at like rezoning or bringing in different types of housings at established neighborhoods is literally because of a situation that we're having on a development in Altoona that was approved. Like the city was like, I mean, they put out the RFP, right? We got the RFP for it, planned it, spent money on it. All of a sudden it goes up for final approvals and the residents of this area are just furious and they felt that they weren't informed in advance. Now, of course, the city of Altoona, I think they did do their job correctly, but it's becoming this huge debacle. We've gotten so much fan mail in the mail today. It's ridiculous, opposing this project. And it's like, it was something that the city had wanted and planned for a long time. And now we're really feeling the repercussion of that. And it's probably going to go to court as a result. And I think, so for me personally, just based on a current situation that's happening right now, I think it's really important that if we are looking at rezoning or bringing in different types of zoning in already developed neighborhoods, that we really are reaching out to the community on their thoughts to prevent a complete railroad situation like we're dealing with at the moment. So that's just a little bit of personal opinion on that.
okay, I'm not carrying on this discussion because I have any objection to this. I'm just trying to figure out how this would be implemented in terms of, who makes changes to that appendix in the comprehensive plan. And it seems like a sort of a work plan issue for the Housing Opportunities Commission, which is directed by the City Council. I'm just trying to figure out how we can fit this into whatever recommendation we make to the City Council. So maybe that's something that Mr. Allen, you could bring to us at our next work session.
Yes, yeah, certainly we can kind of dive down a little bit more to see what that could look like, and certainly not reinvent the wheel necessarily, but see other best practices that could apply, or again, not being a part of that process last time, to see kind of how that operated and if that's a appropriate application of that, or if it needs to be perhaps something a bit modified or otherwise adjusted to be more kind of more applicable to the intention that I'm gathering here. Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Any other discussion about Chapter 2? Commissioner Greger.
Thank you, Chair Larson. I guess one kind of big idea that came to mind, and I'm not sure either how to fit it in. And maybe it's something more for 5 years from now, but it's just good to get ideas on the table for the long term. But I think one of the things that kind of struck me here with under the land use chapter is, and just how we in the growth management plan here, is just like how we plan for parks and trails in particular. And we're running into a big challenge with the development is trying to get outside of this ring of bypasses that we have now. 90 Highway 94, 53, and then even 29. And so you look at some of those future growth areas, there's a lot of good ways for people in automobiles to do kind of a circular perimeter path around the city, but there's really not good ways to do that on a bicycle or walking, or for transit to necessarily do that easily in the future. So kind of what I'm thinking as kind of a big idea is like, can we plan for a perimeter park and conservancy and trail system that is maybe similar along the lines to what we see in Stevens Point, although that's a much smaller city. But they have something called the Green Circle Trail, which kind of combines a bunch of land conservation and parks and trails like into a loop around the city. In this case, like, we have a lot of land that is not in the city limits yet, but maybe that's exactly the time to plan for something big that would really only be in place in 50 years from now. So, this chapter talks a lot about, well, towards the end at least, it talks about the Chippewa-Eau Claire Metropolitan Planning Organization and the more regional planning that goes along with land use and growth management. And obviously there's a whole plan chapter on that too, but it seems like working with some of the other entities, Eau Claire County, the towns, on seeing what we could envision in terms of a parks and trails concept. Obviously that touches on the transportation chapter, it touches on the parks and waterways chapter, and the natural resources chapter. But that's the kind of the big idea that kind of came to mind, is like, how do we envision a perimeter park and trail system? And maybe if we did a plan, like, maybe we don't do the plan for another 5 years or something, but if we put it as a goal for the city to do a plan for something like that, it could really be something that benefits us many years from now. So just wanted to put that out there, and I'm not sure if it fits in terms of putting language in here, but that's where I'm at with the big idea category.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to chapter 8. Is that going to be Mr. Allen?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I should note here too, as we go through this, chapter 2, certainly let us know as you have comments. Again, I've received a few already, and certainly please keep those coming along. Again, really focused on the action plan section. So thanks, Ryan, for steering this here. Urban design plan. The overall summary of issues, looking at, again, new, established, and commercial, kind of the focus there, plus parks and downtown. So we can kind of skip forward a couple pages. The summary of issues, again, kind of pulling, thank you, we'll stop there, the goals and objectives. Again, the summary of issues really, as Commissioner Wolfgram was kind of pointing out towards, the kind of the other part of the comprehensive plan analysis conditions issues reports. It's kind of a quick summary of some of those items from those pieces. So there's kind of a compendium with each of these different chapters. So goal and objectives, again, this then gets reflected back into the action plans. Not a whole lot to really dwell on here. I do want to emphasize objective 3 in particular. And we can kind of skip ahead to, I think it's page 8, 8-8. Again, happy to bounce back to any of these as need be. There we go. Again, commercial design guidelines. That's really kind of what is the crux of this objective here. We've seen other design guidelines. The next page, Ryan, if you want to scroll to that real quick. Item 6, for example, there's a multifamily design manual. So you've already taken a look at that and made some updates and adjustments to that. So, but if we go back to policy policy number 1, that really talks about top of page 8-8. Thank you. Design guidelines for commercial development. So that's something that's been floating out there for a while, has not been really approached in a substantive way at this point, and is actually even was identified back in one of the action steps to prepare and adopt design guidelines or standards for new commercial development in perimeter, corridor, and downtown locations. So it was very specific in that regard. But again, kind of has been set aside for now. So that's one item I think we'd like to get some feedback and commentary on. And from there, again, I'm looking at all my notes as well as we're talking through here, and Ryan's driving for me. If we can skip ahead, actually, we can jump, since we're already after 6 o'clock, we can jump ahead to the last page, 8-30. Thank you. It won't make us dizzy. Thank you. So again, the urban design plan action steps. Again, this is reflected now in that chapter 15. If there are any specific items on this, I know there's been some discussion about street trees. Sign ordinance is one that we'll be looking at here in the next year, very likely. So with that, just want to get some feedback on some of these to see kind of what we need to reassess and then propel forward over the next 5 years. So I'll leave it with that, so we can jump to chapter 9 and have a little bit of time yet before we try to wrap up here in the next half hour.
Okay, Mr. Wolfram.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. Scott, we had wanted for an action step under multifamily housing design on the chart in the chapter, then it's found in objective 3 policies number 6, to add to the bullet point list affordability and mixed use residential model. I know that you added affordability to the manual. Would it also be relevant, we think it would, to add it also to the comprehensive plan, chapter 8?
I think that's pertinent to include that update. And yeah, those are some of the kind of refresh of some of the text that we do want to acknowledge as being kind of a new perspective or just general update moving forward. Again, we don't necessarily have to look at every missing period or uncrossed T or something like that, but when it's substantive language like that, that's certainly something we could look at adding in here.
Thank you.
Good. Any other comments on chapter 8? Mr. Greger.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Chapter 8, Urban Design. I think my big takeaway is that I really would like us to move forward on focusing on street trees and urban forestry. And I know we have really great staff in that arena, like that, and they're doing a tremendous job, and they have a lot to work with the emerald ash borer, I know right now. And that may be part of the delay here. But I see some of the master plans, like for other cities, like the city of Pittsburgh in 2012, they did an urban forest master plan that I really liked when I saw it at the time, and I would imagine it still holds up pretty good. So I think it also relates to the corridor beautification discussions in this chapter, where there's sometimes when you have a major arterial, like the focus ends up being on how do you see all the businesses along the way, or how do you move as many cars as possible and as fast as possible, versus how do you make it a comfortable street for people to walk on and have some beauty associated with it. And I think there's Brackett Avenue that we just redid like 5 years ago and doesn't have a single tree on it. So how do we kind of refocus on that as part of a street tree urban forest plan, which is already in our document. We just haven't done it yet, but maybe we can have it be a little bit broader too, although sometimes that can make it harder to accomplish because they're trying to accomplish too many things. But street tree plan is on there, and street tree practice. So I just wanted to show my support for moving those things forward.
Okay, thank you. So let's move on to chapter 9.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, I apologize, Ned is unable to join us tonight. So I think for sake of time, Ryan, if you're able to jump to chapter 9, find that for us. We can, again, do the same as we just did chapter 8. Again, I know I've received some feedback already from a few of you as well. Again, there's some tie-in with the urban design as well in terms of, again, reference to residential neighborhoods, infill, and such, especially regarding existing neighborhoods. Even talk of street trees and other such components of that. So with that, that's fine. We can I can jump to the plan action steps. I'm actually looking as well, kind of my other screen here as we're talking, at the plan implementation table, kind of the update, the assessment that staff has provided. You should have a copy of that from your materials last time. To kind of echo Commissioner Greger's comments about street tree plan as well as streetscape improvements. Both of those were acknowledged as not having much progress to date. So those are certainly things that could be considered amplifying over the next 5 years. In terms of the neighborhood section, we identified as staff quite a bit of progress, especially in terms of seeing the city county health department taking on housing inspections and that effort, other code enforcement, street and alley maintenance projects and programs, the neighborhood plans that continue to occur, and perhaps that's a good place to kind of turn and get some feedback. Is that again, there's been growing number of neighborhood associations. Certainly due in part to the efforts of a number of you on the Planning Commission here as well over the last few years. So we may be seeing a number of new neighborhood associations crop up with new requests for neighborhood plans. Again, we're anticipating additional staffing as we move into the new year to hopefully assist with that. So Ryan, if you don't mind just kind of jumping to the end of the chapter. It is a bit brief, actually, especially compared to some of the other chapters, but certainly not without substantive comment and content, I should say. So again, really focusing on plan action steps. Again, planning summit. We've seen neighborhood association summits occurring now, being a little bit more formalized through that process, and certainly trying to take advantage of additional staffing perhaps coming along here next year as we move forward with other neighborhood plans. So with that, again, I know, I believe Commissioner Wolfgram had some comments perhaps to share as well. Commissioner Obaid and others have received some comments from. So I'll just kind of pause as we're already about 6:15 and get some feedback on this chapter in particular.
Okay, Mr. Wolfram.
Thank you, Chairperson Larson. Well, we're not quite sure where this fits, but speaking to the integrity of neighborhood associations, we wanted to recommend to add to existing policy, and again, wanting staff input about where that would best fit, that the neighborhood association be consulted, but that we receive the feedback. They are being consulted, but that we receive the feedback before granting approvals. We thought that perhaps this might be a separate item that would designate the Plan Commission as a gatekeeper. Again, we're not sure exactly where this fits, but this is something we would ask you to consider. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have just a comment on that. I do think that feedback from the neighborhoods is important, and I'm glad that the staff seeks it out when we have developments in neighborhoods that are represented by neighborhood associations. But I don't know about whether we can require feedback from them before we proceed. That's kind of a different question. Any response to that, Mr. Wolfram?
I think that the expectation would be that they may have a date that they would need to get back to us. It certainly wouldn't be open-ended. I understand your concern there and would just like more staff guidance on that issue. And again, it's in the spirit of maintaining and growing the integrity of the neighborhood associations and valuing and privileging their input.
Okay.
Excellent question. So typically I handle the application is submitted to staff, and it is within the historic neighborhood or within the neighborhood that has established association. We usually put a time frame on the review, and typically the only time we hear back from them, unfortunately, is when they disagree or do not support what is occurring. For example, the conditional use permit that was submitted to staff last month for Mr. Garlick's Airbnb on 3rd Avenue, we sent that over to the neighborhood and we gave them 2+ weeks to review it. And unfortunately did not hear back from them, and today we still have not heard back from them. One of the commission members and council member, Gregor, reached out to them as well. And he can follow up, but he reached out to them as well. But typically, the only time we do get feedback from the neighborhood association is when they do not support something, unfortunately. So I would keep that in mind, that if we are gonna require them to respond within a timely manner, staff would prefer 2 weeks is the maximum. Otherwise, that would be moving that agenda item to a different meeting or postponing that item as a commission to a different meeting.
Mr. Wolfram, did you have more comments?
Yes, thanks. I remember that entire process at the last meeting, of course. And let's see, so what that really reflects to me personally is there's a missing piece here. There's a missing piece of outreach or consultation, meeting with the neighborhood association to be able to talk through that. It would be hard for me to believe that it would not be important to them to be providing feedback. And so I would just ask that we pursue this just a little bit more carefully and a little bit more intentionally about reaching out to them about this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments on chapter 9? Commissioner Gregor.
Thank you, Chair Larson. Yeah, I just tried to pull out kind of one idea from each of these because I had like 10 ideas with each, but I don't want to make you go through that. But I guess the big kind of theme that came out for me here is that, you know, we've had a lot of focus on the oldest neighborhoods in the city, and I think that's super important, and they're still going to need the most attention. But I also kind of wonder about what we've learned from that. That could be really helpful for those neighborhoods that are maybe not super old, but you know are kind of getting in the middle-aged category, which would be like 50 to 100 years old. So those neighborhoods, you know, built in the 1920s to the 1970 or so, were, you know, they're starting to experience some of those same issues. And I think, as another commissioner mentioned, you know, sometimes there's a little bit of resentment toward, you know, such a downtown focus that the city of Eau Claire has procured over the last 15 years for very good reason, and to a decent amount of success. And maybe there's some attention that could be paid to those neighborhoods that maybe are, you know, kind of more middle-aged. And, you know, so that could be the Upper West Side, it could be Putnam Heights, it could be the eastern part of the city, or the eastern part of the city over by Hastings Way. It could be a lot of the north side. I don't really have a specific like thing to change in here. It's just, you know, maybe a pivot over time would be to look at that middle category of housing and residential areas, and because a lot of them don't have neighborhood associations, but they're starting to over the last couple of years. And I think there's a lot we could learn from the perspective of folks that live in those neighborhoods about what we could do to support them more. So definitely something I've heard a lot about as a council member that represents a core neighborhood, an older neighborhood, as well as some neighborhoods that are more middle-aged, I guess. So just wanted to put that out there. There's some of those things like the plowing of alleys that we haven't really fully tackled, or residential parking permits that we haven't fully tackled. And those are some other things that were kind of, that stood out to me in this chapter. But I do think, you know, to Commissioner Wolfgram's point about neighborhood associations, I do think we should try to, I think one of the things that can help us formalize what that relationship is this $100 a year that the city of Eau Claire makes available to neighborhood associations as a way to help them administratively. Obviously, it's not a lot of money, but it can help maybe better that relationship and communication channel that is needed, I think, to make good decisions. So, thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Christopherson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm really interested in the conversation we're having about neighborhood associations. I guess the one comment that I would contribute is there's an enormous amount of work that goes into helping individuals to organize either around their self-interest or help them to see options to things that they're opposed to. But I'm always a little impatient when it gets to be that the city has to be the back that does this, or the labor that does this, because it's really a community and a city goal. It's in our best interest to have active neighborhood associations and to equip our citizens or our residents in really advancing their own self-interest. So this is a really helpful conversation, but I just think that it has to have a lot of more buy-in than simply saying it should be in the comprehensive plan and that staff should take care of it. There was an excellent presentation that Ned Noel made to the summit, neighborhood summit meeting in the last couple of weeks. And people, that was one of the most heavily attended of the breakout sessions, because people really feel that accessing the city staff requires some kind of special information. And actually it does. I mean, as we go through this review of the comprehensive plan, it takes a lot of time. And people that are simply property owners, they're not seeing that as being their major task. They're raising their families, they're doing their work. So I just think, I guess what I want to contribute is that it takes some type of a commitment by citizens to activate neighborhoods. And I don't think it is something that the city can afford to just put onto the staff. But I really appreciate the conversation.
Thank you. All right, we've only got like 4 minutes left here, so what I'd like to do is just recap what we have talked about in terms of what we will be discussing, I guess, at the next meeting. So we're still waiting for updates from the Transit Commission and Bpac on Chapter 3, the Community Services Department in Chapter 4, the Housing Opportunities Commission for Chapter 10, Community Services, Ned Noel from Chapter 13. We still need feedback from some folks for Chapter 14, and then the Sustainability Chapter. And what we talked about here was to have proposals for flexibility and uses inside certain zoning areas, and public input processes for Chapter 2, and adding affordability to Objective 3, number 6 in Chapter 8. So, Mr. Allen, any idea when our next work session will be?
Is it wrong to say no? I have no idea. No, I have ideas, and Mr. Petrie and I have talked about it a little bit too. Your next regular meeting is January 4th, which is 3 weeks. Again, it's kind of nice to have, you know, December where you just really just have the one meeting to contend with. But the downside to that is between now and January 4th, I don't know about you, but I have like pretty much every day booked for something. So that may be tough to get a lot of material and information put together, especially since we tried to give a number of these boards and commissions, as you've noted, through the end of the month, which really would be pushing to get all that put together then and back to you the 31st. New Year's Eve is on a Thursday, and obviously City Hall and all city offices are closed on Friday the 1st. So point being, we could try to do something on Monday the 4th. I mean, we're happy to have a work session at any time, you can certainly have a work session. Ryan may even say that we could try to schedule something for after your next meeting. It's a little bit hard to kind of pinpoint a time. We could just advertise it as immediately following, like the city council has done in the past, immediately following the regular meeting, and just keep that meeting kind of link open. Use the same meeting link and just have a conversation, just see where we're at. We hate to just push things just because we may not make a lot of headway between now and the 4th, but we may get a lot of good feedback from you as well in chapters 2, 8, and 9 even. Still moving forward, or again, other chapters as well. Please don't feel like you just have to review those 3 and make no comments elsewhere. The other option would be, we could keep that as an option. We could look at, I'd say, the week of the 18th. The 18th again is technically a holiday, so we hate to have a meeting that night. Maybe we just bump it, one night to Tuesday the 19th. That's an option, and then your following meeting would be Monday, February 1st. So once we hit the new year, you'll have every other week, kind of like you're used to look at. We can have 3 work sessions: 4th, 19th, and 1st.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think it's less important that we get it done quickly than it is that the next one we are able to finish up. So, if it takes more time to hear back from everyone you need to hear back from, before we can have some specific, changes that we want to make, then, February 4th even is fine with me. I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel about that.
Did you say February 1st, Mr. Chair?
February, is it the 1st you said?
Yeah, February 1st would be your first meeting in February, and yeah, that's certainly an option too. That would give all of January to really finalize kind of a cleaner draft for review. Along with that, we do want to make sure we have an opportunity for some a little bit more formal or even informal public comment period too. So, hosting some WebEx meetings or having some more, open comment period at some of these meetings as well.
So if we have one more work session where we've got sort of an idea what specific proposals we want to make, then we would need to bring that up at a regular plan commission meeting to vote on recommendations to the city council, or is that, do I have that?
Correct. Yes, that's correct. But I know there's also been interest from a number of you in the commission to have some public input opportunity before actually a formal public hearing at the planning commission, to have some other engagement opportunity. So that I don't know exactly what that would look like, considering we're still running all of our meetings virtually. But again, yeah, February 1st, that seems like a reasonable opportunity to have your next work session and kind of finalize everything. And that would also give some time to ponder some public forum type opportunities as well.
Well, I presume the regular meeting agenda item would be a public hearing, right?
That is correct. And if that's sufficient, that's fine. Again, we do want to acknowledge, again, this is the 5-year review where it's really looking at action steps. So it's not necessarily looking for, public input on every line of every page, but we, certainly want to provide, adequate opportunity for some public comment, either at the end with that public hearing and with something else, or, adding something else as well.
Well, I would continue to encourage the commissioners that as they have contact with the public about these items, that they encourage the public to log in and make comments to us during our regular meetings where we have our open public comment, and also to collaborate with them as Mr. Wolfram did on proposals that she came up with. So any other comments from the commission about the future agenda items. Mr. Wolfram.
Just really quickly, I know that we're over time. If we're going to stick with a public hearing for public input, I just want to quickly recommend that that staff come up with some kind of user-friendly summary of the action steps, very user-friendly, that we could distribute to our networks in the community before the public hearing, and that we have enough notice before the public hearing to be able to distribute that to our networks. I consider myself a pretty smart person, and I have to tell you that it took me a couple of weeks to really wrap my head around what was being asked of us and to understand everything within that comprehensive plan. So that would just be my quick request.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great idea. Absolutely. Yeah, please do that. Again, if we're looking at February 1st to confirm for our next and final work session, again, that will give us a good 6 weeks to really, filter everything through here and perhaps reach out if there are any questions and clarifications and follow-up that we need to do. Please certainly we encourage you to do the same. For questions, clarification, or comments along the way. This is a chance to do that. And again, to sum up, trying to set the stage for the next 5 years. Like I said, it's almost like kind of predicting your next 5 work plans in a way. That's really kind of what we're looking to do is clarify that. And again, update and modify any kind of that terminology, like we talked about, adding the word affordable, adding some of those things that have really risen to the top over the last 5 years as well.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will adjourn this work session and reconvene for our regular planning commission meeting at 7 o'clock.
This program was brought to you by a cooperation between Newsworks and the City of Eau Claire. A transcript of this meeting is available for the hearing impaired. It will be available within 7 days of this telecast. Call 715-839-4912 or TDD 715-839-1689 or write Eau Claire City Clerk, P.O. Box 5148, Eau Claire, Wisconsin 54702-5148. Newsworks is made possible by continuing community support. If you would like to volunteer or make a donation, please contact us via phone at 715-839-5067 or online at valleymediaworks.org.